I went through the most challenging season of my life a couple of years ago. I was tired of ministry, so I stopped attending church for 1 year. In this video, I will share with you what happened. So if you are a Christian wife with a leadership role and you are experiencing church burnout, you should watch this video. I'm going to share how to overcome church burnout and also share my story of deliverance and restoration. A couple of years ago, I went through the most difficult season of my life. I was tired of going to church and I was tired of the same routine. My husband and I, we have been in our ministry for 32 and a half years. And after being in ministry for so long, I had gotten to where I was just tired of going to church every Wednesday night, every Sunday morning. I was tired of the responsibility and of the sacrifice of having to share my husband with the church. Now, my husband and I, we are very close, but I didn't even share this with him. It's because at that time, we were going through the process of building under the church, and my husband was under a lot of stress. And one of his main job as a pastor is to encourage, motivate, and counsel members and other people. I am very mindful of his responsibilities. So I feel that when you are married to a pastor or someone that's in ministry, it's important to be independent spiritually and just to be able to handle things yourself. Now, that's just my opinion. So I didn't share with my husband how I felt. I just kept it to myself. I kept going to church, acting like everything was okay, but it really wasn't. I was dying inside and I just needed help mentally and spiritually. To make matters worse, my husband and I, we started having some serious issues in our marriage, and I didn't think that our marriage would last. So just coming to church was so hard for me. I had to put a smile on my face and act like everything was okay, but it wasn't. I really wanted to talk to someone, but I just didn't feel like anyone would understand what I was going through. And not only that, when you are married to a pastor, you have to be careful about who you talk to about your relationship. And I just didn't feel like that I had that. I felt so alone, and I felt that God had forgotten about me. Now my husband, he is a great minister, and God speaks to him. He uses him to meet people's needs. But whenever I would go to church, I felt that God was overlooking me. It felt like everyone else's needs were getting met, but mine. Being a pastor's wife can be very lonely when you are going through personal issues in your life, especially in your relationship. At that time, I had got into a place to where I was just tired of my whole life revolving around church. Not doing it purposely, but we based all of our entertainment around church functions. I just wanted to go on vacations, to do things outside of church. And at that time, my husband's mindset was on rebuilding the church. I wanted him to focus on our marriage. So I resented the church more because I felt like that it had ruined our marriage. I was tired of the sacrificing of my personal relationship. So I did the unthinkable. I stopped going to my church. That was the hardest thing that I have ever done. I was raised in the church. My mom, she was a pastor. She started pastoring when I was a baby. So church has been all of my life. When I stopped attending my church, it felt so strange just to be home on Sunday mornings. And I can remember not knowing what to do with myself. After 3 weeks of being at home on Sundays, I started visiting other churches. But I noticed that I felt lost and out of place at every church that I visited. Most of all of the churches that I went to, once the preacher got up to deliver the sermon, I wanted to go to sleep. And I can remember having to make myself stay awake. Now, I'm not bragging, but this is the truth. I am used to going to a church and getting something from God every service. I'm used of going home feeling encouraged, feeling stronger, feeling that I can make it. But I was feeling the same way when I left church. So after visiting a couple of churches, finally I found a church that I liked. It was a lively service, good singing and music, and the preacher, he actually could preach. One Sunday, while I was at church, a voice spoke to me and said, "You will never be happy or feel at home because you're out of place." So even though I was content, I knew that I was out of God's will and that it was just a season that I would be there. So the voice told me that going to this church for a while is okay, but this is not your home. It's meant for you to be with your husband. After a couple of months of going there, I began to miss my church. I missed the ladies, the teens, the children. I missed my responsibilities. Most importantly, I missed being in God's presence. I was ready to return to my church, but it was two things that I wanted to happen first. Number one, I wanted my husband to ask me to come back. I wanted him to let me know that he missed me being there. Number two, I wanted the issue in my marriage to be resolved. Now I'm going to share with you the things that I did to overcome church hurt, church burnout, and also transformation in my marriage, in my spiritual life. Tip number one, pray. I prayed to God and I asked him to restore me, to give me the right spirit, to clean my heart. I prayed about my marriage. I told God, if it's your will, restore my marriage. After that, I started praying for my husband, and I didn't pray anything negative. I didn't tell God to get him. Sometimes when we know that our spouse is in the wrong about a particular matter, we want God to chastise our spouse. But I think it's important to treat others the way that you want to be treated. And if my husband is praying for me, I want him to pray something positive in my life. I felt that my husband was the one in the wrong with this issue that we were having, but God told me to respect him and to submit to him. And I remember when he told me that, I was confused because I felt that, God, he is the one that's wrong. Why is it that you are telling me to respect and to submit to him? And God told me again, you must respect him. I didn't understand it at that time, but I understand it now. And it is because my husband is a pastor. In order for the members and for people to respect him, I had to respect him too. So I prayed to God and asked him to help me to respect and to submit to my husband. And it was hard. Tip number two, focus on your behavior. Don't focus on your spouse or people at your church. Change yourself. When you work on yourself, it changes you and every relationship that you are connected to, even your spouse. So I started working on myself, and just by listening to what God had told me about respecting and submitting to my husband, it changed me and also our relationship. I started treating my husband with love and respect. And at first it was very hard, but as time went by, it became easier. And I noticed that the more that I submitted to my spouse, the more he started trying to please me. I can remember him suggesting us going out on dates, spending time together. A lot of times we just be at home watching movies. God's word is true. If you start applying it to your life, it will transform your situation. God's word is powerful. It will bring about a change because his word won't go void. Tip number 3, ask for forgiveness. I ask God to forgive me for complaining about the church and the ministry that he has put us over. I ask God to help me not to resent the church. I ask him to rejuvenate me and give me a new song in spirit. And God did just that. When I went back to my church, I felt love from the members. I could tell that they missed me. I felt restored, motivated, and I was glad to be home. Tip number 4, find community. Believe it or not, there are a lot of other wives in ministry that's going through or went through the same thing that you are going through now. The devil wants you to be alone. He wants you to feel isolated, feel like nobody cares. So it's important to find community. Tip number 4, discover self-care. Self-care was a game changer for me. I started exercising and also reading again. I used to love to read before I got married, but after I got married and started having children, I just forgot about things that was important to me. As I began to practice self-care and stay in tune with God, that is when I began to feel complete. One thing that I have learned after being in ministry for many years, you have to learn to find balance. When you don't have balance in your life, you will get tired and burn out. And if you're not careful, you will start resenting working in ministry. Tip number 5, rediscover yourself. After I reconnected with my church, I started feeling a calling in my life to do something else. I did not know what it was, but I knew that I wanted to help women in ministry. After going through the hardest season in my life and feeling lonely, I desired to help wives in ministry. I didn't want anyone else to feel isolated like I did. That is why I started my YouTube channel, Chats with Flo. And I never thought about it until I reconnected with myself and listened to God. So if you are a wife in ministry and you are experiencing church hurt, burnout, and marriage issues, give it to God. He will sustain you. He will turn things around for you, just like he did for me. I do want to add, it's normal to get burnt out and tired from ministry life, but you don't realize what you have until you walk away from it. And when I walked away from my church, my responsibilities, I wasn't content. I felt lonely. I missed my church home. It's just something about being in God's will. And being in God's will is not going to always make you feel happy or excited, but it will make you feel content. And once I started back coming to my church, God renewed my mind, and he also transformed me, and he gave me a burden for our ministry again. And now I'm more active in my church than what I was before. So I don't regret my decision of walking away and taking a break for a while, because I didn't realize what I had until I left it. You know how the saying goes, the grass is not always greener on the other side, and that is true. One of the main reasons why I shared my story with you, I want you to understand and know that when you are destined by God to do something, and when you walk out of his will and do your own thing, you're not going to be happy. Thank you for tuning in. If you have experienced burnout in ministry and you have overcome it, please share your story in the comment section. It may help someone else. If you are experiencing burnout and church hurt and you need someone to talk to, book a consultation with me. I will have my information in my description box. If this video helped you, please let me know in the comment section. If you want to support me, you can support me by subscribing to my YouTube channel liking this video and also share it with someone that you think that it will be a help to. Thank you for support. And make sure you tune in for the next upload. May God bless you. Bye.